Just know, before we get started, you can build everything that I'm going to show you in this video. And as a bonus, everything is made of offcuts and scraps left over from this year's builds. And that's technically free. So these gifts or items you can sell will either save you money or make you money. We're going to start simple. We're going to work our way up from the easiest projects right up to one that I think may just be the coolest thing that I've built this year. We're going to make all of it out of this stack. Should be fine, right? All the projects start off the same way. If you've got strips, you're going to need to cut them down to a similar thickness. And then any blocks or boards that you're going to glue together, the sides that meet need to be flat. And this can be done in a number of different ways. I'm using the combination of a table saw and a thicknesser, but you could easily take a hand plane to these too. I'm not going to show you every step here, as your scraps are probably going to be very different to mine. So let's just start the first build. And this, well, this is going to be the easiest of them all. So for this one, if you've got chunks or blocks of wood, this is where they're going to come into their own. You could use a singular block, or you could glue some together to make a slightly more interesting looking block. Let me show you. And if you're going to glue them together, this is where all those flat edges you created earlier are going to come back to help you. I've just thrown together whatever I've got left over that's of a similar size and glued it all up, clamped it overnight, just so I've got a load of blocks to work with the next day. I mean, the first one is literally just a sapele block glued into a rough cube and then polished. Because with the end grain on the top, you can polish that almost down to a marble-like finish. And if anybody's interested, I started at 80 grit, finished at 1000 grit, pretty much going through every grit of sandpaper I had in between. What is it? Well, it's a paperweight. Look quite cool on your desk though, wouldn't it? But I didn't want to leave it there, so I took one of the blocks of the multiple woods that I glued together. I think it's oak, sapele and potentially sycamore, but instead of polishing it, I sanded it up to 240 grit and then I applied some lacquer. And then for good measure, well, I put a handle on the top. Why? Well, I thought it might be clever to use it as a paperweight with a handle. You know, they're not all going to be winners, but somebody might like this. You're going to notice through this video that I'm using different types of finish. Honestly, I'm keeping it simple. I'm either going to use a spray lacquer or a wax mineral spirit blend that's being sold by Leo over at Single Handedly Made. The reason I stick to two, honestly, is just to keep life really easy. But if you're not confident with finishes, get your sandpaper out. And while we're warming up, I took another one of those multiple wood blocks and I just drilled some holes in the top. Because why not have a paperweight desk tidy that holds your pencils and pens? And remember, when you're applying spray lacquer, do it either in a well-ventilated area or, better still, outside. The beauty of it is you can do multiple coats in a very short space of time. And the finish is lovely. So I said this was the warm-up build, and it's all about these blocks that we've put together, different species of wood. Well, there's other things you can do with them. Like, for instance, these candle holders. Different shapes and sizes, it doesn't matter. You can drill into the top, into the end grain. All you need is a Forstner bit the same size as your candles. Drill some holes, as deep as your candles, and that's absolutely all you need to do. If you want to route around the edges to make them a little bit more tactile, go for it. I've drilled these into the end grain on the top. One quick word of warning, be really careful when you're drilling into end grain, because the Forstner bit has a habit of sticking and that will snap the drill round, which could hurt your wrist. So keep it nice and tight and go very carefully. If you've got a drill press, even better. You could do a simple candle with just the candle in the top, or take a measurement, find out where the base of the candle's going to sit if you drill a bit deeper, and then drill through the sides. I didn't actually know if this would work, but I think it's actually come out really maybe I am displaying these with lightable candles, like proper wax candles. I'd suggest the one where the candle sits inside the wood, maybe better off if it's a battery LED candle. And these I thought would look a little bit nicer with a more satin finish, which is what you get when you use one of these wipe-on wax mineral spirit blends. I think they came out really nicely. So this here was the warm-up build, whether it's just giving someone a block of wood or whether you take the time to drill some holes in it. Each one of these builds takes very little time and relatively little skill. The only mistake that I constantly make when I'm doing these kinds of builds is not spending enough time on finish. And by that I mean sanding. With any finish that penetrates the wood, like your wax mineral spirit blend, I wouldn't go past 180 grit. For the lacquer I go up to 240, but remember, before you put the last coat of lacquer on, if you want a really smooth finish, give it a quick denib with 320 or higher grit sandpaper. You don't have to do too much, and then spray a really light last coat on. That'll get you the best finish. Any one of these makes a great gift, but let's up the stakes a bit. So for this next build, you're going to take all of your thinner scraps and you're just going to glue them all together. We're looking for a width of around 100 millimeters and thickness of around 20. The better you trim these thin pieces up, the better they're going to glue together. You don't need to be exact when gluing these together, but the closer you get it, the less work you're going to have to do down the line. The way this video is laid out makes it look like each build is done separately. But actually, when I was gluing the blocks up for the last build, that's when I was gluing these strips up for this build. You'll find that if you do all the similar jobs at the same time, not only does it speed you up, it also minimizes mistakes. And if you're going to leave glue on one build to cure overnight, may as well leave all of them together. Then if you've got a thicknesser handy and the pieces you've made are longer than, let's say, around 12 inches, then go ahead and send it through until you've got a nice flat top and bottom parallel to each other. You're going to end up with something that looks a bit like this. Now, what wood you use is going to determine the pattern, so a mixture of light and dark wood, any kind that contrasts, is going to look pretty good. Then, in all honesty, you're pretty much nearly there. Now, I've made as much as I can from what I had lying around. Some of them are short, some of them are medium length, and then a couple of them are longer. What you have is really going to determine what you can build and how you go about it. But first and simplest of all, you can make some long grain coasters. Take one of your pieces that you've glued up, cut it into a square, sand it, and away you go. But consider this. Cross-cut one more time one of these boards into slats. Then glue it together end grain facing up. Suddenly you've got a more interesting pattern. Alternate the pieces and you've got an even more interesting pattern still. Have a play around with it, because at the end of the day, no two pieces of wood are going to be the same. So if you start mixing these up, turning them around, suddenly you've got a unique patterned coaster. But from a build perspective, as soon as you turn that end grain upwards, the job of cleaning it up gets a little bit harder. Whereas on a long grain coaster, you can just use your random orbital sander to get everything level and flat and then just go through your sanding stages. With an end grain, I like to start off with a hand plane, but do whatever works. The hand plane does make some really interesting shavings on this one. And then for comparison, here's the long grain and here are two of the end grains. First one with lacquer, second one with the wax finish. I don't have a personal preference when it comes to long grain or end grain. I do think that if you're given it as a gift, end grain cries out that you've put a lot more effort into it, but it does open up more work. But what if you want to stick to long grain coasters, but you're bored of square? Well, why not experiment with different shapes? I've made a round one here. All you need is a template, rough cut to the line, and then take it over to your router. Well, maybe don't take it over to your router table unless you're very confident that it's not going to get flicked out of your hands. I like to lock small pieces like this down and take the router to them and then just use a flush trim bit to get everything lined up to the template. Once again, a little bit of wax mineral spirit blend on these, and if you can't do a perfect circle, well, make up a shape, because, well, that might be interesting too. Not this shape. This shape isn't, well, if you're getting this as a gift, this is a great shape. I do quite like circle though. But after making all those coasters, I've got one more piece of wood where I've glued the battens together left. And I've got a really good idea for this one. And all you need is a coving bit for your router. There's no rules to this. All I'm going to do with mine is make 5 passes over the router with the coving bit. If you find you're getting any tear out, take multiple passes before you get down to depth. And so far it looks quite good. You can put a round profile on these corners because I think it's a little bit blunt as it is. But it all comes down like every other project. It all comes down to the finishing. I would suggest if you want to sand out these grooves, a dowel wrapped in sandpaper is going to be your best bet. Be careful not to take off the edges, or do take off the edges and create a ripple effect. Lean into whichever way it goes, because honestly, they're all going to look good. And then standard sanding all over. And it is odd to say this, but I genuinely think that that will be an interesting present, because someone's going to get it and the first thing they're going to say is, what is it? So you get to go full woodworker on them. You get to tell them how you made it, what you designed it for, what they could possibly use it for, what other things you might be able to make for them that would accessorize with it. Maybe show them how the coasters match and how they might want a complete set. They can use it for, well, you get the point. It's a great gift. Okay, this next one is a really easy build. It's also really versatile. So you can adapt it to suit the needs of whoever you're going to gift it to, or whatever you're going to sell it as. I'm using it as a way of using up some of these leftover boards that I've got from other projects. They're approximately 12mm thick, and I've got a mixture of oak and sapele, as I have for every other project. I'll be honest with you, I've not actually got a design in mind or a plan. I'm just going to make this as I go. I know it's got to fit a certain something that I'm going to use it for, so I'm really just working off those measurements. But in effect, it's going to be an amalgamation of box and tray. I'll show you as I go. I'm going to work from the outside in on this one, and the first job to do is just to get all the side pieces cut down to the right dimensions, and then I'm going to attach them together using rebates. The reason I'm using rebates is so that when I cut a groove to hold the base of this box tray, you won't see them because the rebates will hide them at the corners. And I'm also going to strengthen these up with a few scraps of other stuff I've got left over at the end. Again, dimensions aren't truly all that important, but I'm going to make mine a bit chunky. You could slim all of this down as you go. Once you've made all your cuts, now's a good time to sand the internals and to sand the inside of the outside pieces, and then do a dry fit. Once you've got everything dry fit, you can then measure for the plywood base, get that cut so that it's really snug, sneak up on a fit here, and then when you're happy, you can glue everything together. I was really happy with how that went, and if you've got to this stage and you're in glue up, well, you're nearly there. My problem is the glue's gone off, and guess who didn't sand the inside of this box? After even saying, sand the inside of the box, tray, thing. What a wally. And because it's a YouTube video, the next thing you're gonna see is the next stage. Thought it was going too well. So now we've got the carcass all glued together. This is the exterior of your box. And it doesn't really matter what size you've come to here, because the rest of it is dependent on how many compartments you want and how you do the interior. To be honest, you're nearly there. Everything we're going to do from here on out is referential measurements, and I'm just going to divide up the inside. It's really easy. And for that, I'm just going to use this oak that I stripped down to 40mm in width, and I'm going to cut that down to the slats, glue them together, glue them to the box and to the internals of the box. To be honest with you, you could probably make grooves to house these and it'll look really nice, but that's a lot. And they'd have to be stopped grooves in this design, and to be honest with you, if you're going to do this as a present or to sell, you probably want to keep it as easy as possible. So make sure your cuts are square, make sure that the internals are sanded before you put them in, don't be me, and then just glue them together with a mixture of glue and CA glue for instant grab, and that's your internals done. Now you don't have to do any of the next bit because, to be honest with you, it's going to be strong enough as it is. But I've just got some spare brass dowels that I've cut short, and I'm just sinking them through the rebate for an added bit of strength and for a little bit of decorative touch on the front and back. The beauty of using brass like this is you can set it into place with some CA glue, and then a few minutes later, once the glue's cured, you can sand the brass dowels back with some 100 grit sandpaper glued to a piece of plywood. Then once you're happy, everything gets one last finishing sand and then a coat of whatever finish you decide to use. And that's the build finished. And I'm sure you're asking, what is it? Well, honestly, it's whatever you want it to be. It could be a desk tidy, or it could be a display for your posh watch collection. I don't have any posh watches. For me, it's a belt box. But I'm going to need some belts. That's better. And don't skip because there's a giveaway too. But first, a little bit about these belts really quickly. These are my new favourite belts from Arcade Belts. You see, they reached out 6 months ago asking if I wanted to try some of their belts. And honestly, I haven't taken them off since. Why? Well, first and foremost, comfort. All their belts are stretchy, so they move with your body, reducing pinching. They come with a low profile contoured buckle, which not only has a satisfying click, but also it doesn't dig into your body. They're stylish and durable, not to mention machine washable, which is a huge plus when you're wearing them with your work clothes. And this one here, well, this one is my absolute favourite. But not only have Arcade Belts been kind enough to sponsor this video, they also did a giveaway on the last video for Patreons and members, and they're also doing a giveaway on this video. Any UK and EU viewers, if you like and subscribe to this video, and then head over to Instagram to Arcade Belts Europe, like and comment Startmaking on their competition post, and you could be in with a chance to win one of the Woody belts or one of the hardware belts. And if you head over to the Arcade Belts website, don't forget to sign up for their newsletter because you get 10% off as well. So a huge thank you to Arcade Belts for not only stocking my belt holder, but also for sponsoring the video and providing a generous giveaway for viewers. Okay, we're 3 gifts down. Well, probably about 10 by this stage, but 3 categories down. And number 4 is a trip back to something super easy and really versatile. All you need is 1, maybe thicker batten, and 3 longer, thinner battens. The only thing to make sure of here is that the 3 that you've got are of similar dimensions. Forget the length, we're going to cut them. But the width and the thickness, that is better if it's the same. And then all we need to do is just get these ones up to a good finish, chop them to length, and well, you'll see. Because I've never made one of these before, I just thought it might be fun. You can mark this out freehand, or do what I've done here and just take a piece of 18mm plywood to use as a spacer between the 3 battens. I've glued the 2 leg pieces together so that I can get exactly matching cuts on them. You'll see that in a second. And then I'm just marking them across both pieces for each of the 3 slats with the 18mm gap in between. Then, using a sled, or if you've got a mitre gauge, you could use that. I've just raised the blade up to about 3/4 of the depth of the legs, and then I'm just going to make the cuts. Each time I get close to the full width of the cut, I take it over to the batten that was measured against it and try it until I can get a really nice snug fit. Now here's a bit that you don't have to do. I'm just shaping the feet. Well, you'll see when it all comes together, but I'm shaping the feet to make it a little bit more interesting looking. And then I've just squared off all of the battens so they're exactly the same length. Did I forget to record me gluing it up? Absolutely. Is it simple to do? Absolutely. Now, although this is the simplest build, I'd imagine there's a lot of people looking at it not knowing what it is and not knowing why it might make a good gift. Now, I'll give you 5 seconds to guess to yourself what you think it is before I tell you. Well, don't be cross. It could be a number of things. Honestly, my design is for your work desk. For those of you that have got a laptop attached to a big screen, you can store your laptop upright in it so it's not taking up as much space. You could also use the sides to store your phone or tablet or hard drives, whatever. Basically, if you store them upright, you've got more chance that they're not going to clutter up your desk. But when I say it can be whatever you want, well, you could put the slats a bit wider and you could put books on it. You could use it to store things that you've made, display things at a craft show, maybe coasters, or while you're making it, you could actually use it to rest the pieces that you're putting wax finish on while you're doing the wax finish, because it turns out to be really handy for that. A super simple build, takes you no time at all, and, well, spark a conversation as well as a great gift. Okay, we're on to the last build, and this one means the most because I actually know exactly who I'm building it for. And it's going to take a mixture of blocks and some contrasting light and dark wood and, interestingly, some old tools. Now, I've got this gift earmarked out for my mother-in-law. I'm always really excited when I can make a gift for somebody that I know before I start making it. And this is even more special because the tool I'm using for the gift for my mother-in-law actually belonged to her late father. And I think that gives the piece an extra special meaning. And if you've got any old tools lying around that are just not going to ever get used, I don't think this is a bad way of using them. And it's not a difficult build. And I'll tell you what it's going to be from the start. It's going to be a bird. So all I've done here is I've just rough cut the pieces out with a jigsaw and then sanded everything nice and smooth. And honestly, I went through my full repertoire of sanding. We started with the random orbital sander. Then we went into the foam block towards the camera, hand sanding. A bit of inner curve work with the sandpaper wrapped around a rubber tube. Screwed up sandpaper hand sanding. Really, really close up to the camera sanding. Leaning on a Moxon vise sanding. And of course, this would look awesome with 3D glasses on sanding. Now, no bird is complete without a perch, and I went into this one just thinking that I would do a nice cube block for the bird to stand on. And then it looked a bit dull. So I started hacking at it with a saw, and that didn't do the trick. So I got this out, my die grinder, and I just went to town. I realised that what I was looking for was a kind of rock-like effect. So I just carved chunks off and grooves until, well, it kind of looked rock-like. I did take some of the jagged bits off, and then to mount the bird I had a bright idea of using a brass dowel, but not a round one, the same size as a drill, no. I used a square profile one, so I had to do a little bit of extra tweaking, but it was really starting to come together. And as you can see here, the tool is the beak. And I think that gives it a really nice, interesting element. Because of the weight of the bird and the tool, I've used 5-minute epoxy to hold the stand in together, and then, well, look how good he looks. I really like how this one's turned out, and I love how it looks after finish, but, well, I was reaching to show you it on camera to do a last wrap up, and I spiked myself on the tool, and as I moved away from the tool or pushed away from it, the bird fell on the floor, and his head fell off. You know, they're not all winners. They don't always come out right. But the good thing about being a woodworker is that you can fix it, hopefully. It's been 2 days since the break. I used Thick and Quick, or Quick and Thick from Titebond, and I'm hoping with a bit of sanding I can hide it. But the test is going to be in the strength. So, I've gone one more time with glue. I've used CA glue this time with the Quick and Thick. I'm hoping the CA glue will penetrate the fibres more, and then it's got to have the strength to hold the tool. It's too thin for me to put anything through it, like a dowel from the top of the head. So, I don't know where I'm at after this, if I'm honest with you. I have one last idea, and it's not a good one. So, let's hope this one works. I'll see you tomorrow. So day 4, it's back on. It's glued to the same strength it was before. We may have a fatal flaw in the design here because it's not a lot of neck and it's a lot of leverage. So you can see there's flexing, and that's not really coming from the dowel that holds it onto his perch. For now, this is the last of the gifts, and well, although it's been a saga, I still think it makes a really wonderful gift. How the fixing goes, well, you'll have to pop over to Patreon, because you know what? I'll do an after show video for it where I show whatever it is that I chose to fix this. And there you have it. Some ideas for some gifts or things you can sell made from scraps and offcuts left over through the year. Whether you keep it simple and just make someone a paperweight for their table, or, you know, add a handle or pencil holes, or you go down the route of just jazzing it up a little bit into a candle holder or some end grain coasters. Not this shape. I hope that you manage to use up as many of your scraps as you possibly can and have a little bit of fun in the build process. And I hope maybe, if you sell your items, maybe some of this gives you a bit of an idea for some new things that you can try out at the markets this year. But one thing I hope you don't do, if you're gifting these items to anybody, is to point out any of the mistakes that might have happened along the way, because chances are they won't notice. We're creeping up on that festive period, and I want to take 2 opportunities here. One, I want to say and reiterate time and again that whatever you do this year, I hope you have fun and I hope you look after yourself. And 2, whether you viewed one video or supported through Patreon, I want to thank each and every one of you watching right now because you made it to the end of this video. I hope you have a wonderful seasonal period no matter what you're doing and who you're doing it with. Take care of yourself, and whether you click on one of these or the link for the Patreon in the description, I'll see you over there.